let's make this more A&M centric.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to take away one thing, what did you learn in Destin from Trev Alberts? What was your main takeaway from Trev?
He did say that, and we all saw it, and Billy talked about it forever, but he told for everybody else, A&M's going to fund all this, full scholarships for everything. And that they're ready to, they have no plans. They don't foresee having to drop any sports because of all this extra funding. But if they have to someday, they will do everything they can to make sure that doesn't happen. It never happens. But it seems like the door was cracked that, in the future, if things don't go just right, there's always that possibility. But as of now, in the near future, it's nothing that they're going to, the athletic department will not be affected by that. So that, the rest of the stuff is, nobody from A&M that I talk, would ever say, hey, we want to play 9 conference games, or we want to play 8 conference games. Like, hey, whatever we talk about, we'll see what we think is best.
Yeah, and I think whenever you go talk about cutting sports, A&M and the rest of the schools in the SEC, or most of the other schools in the SEC, are going to be so high above that kind of threshold of cutting sports, at least at the beginning, where you look at, I don't know if you saw this, OB, but Stephen F. Austin is already cutting sports. So, like, at the mid-major level, how they survive all this shift in revenue and what the burden that's going to be placed on the athletic departments now with NIL, I think we are going to see massive sport cuts at the mid-major level, and it's only a matter of time to me before that trickles all the way up to the top.
To Scotty's point, you lose a one-run ball game to the number 1 team in the country, LSU Tigers. What does that win if you're on the right side of a runner's lane violation call at first base, whatever? If you win that game, what does that do for your RPI? That got to boost you up a few spots in the committee's eyes, and then it obviously gives you the opportunity to play Ole Miss in a semifinal, but they didn't get that opportunity. To begin with, what you started with, Jace Lavalette, man, I know 2025 didn't go the way he would have liked it to go. He ended up hitting, 266 overall and 233 in SEC play. That's a guy that's going to be a top 15 pick in the July MLB draft. He is, without a doubt, one of the greatest Texas A&M baseball players to ever put on the maroon and white. And for him to go out by playing with a broken hand and exhibiting the toughness and grit that Aggies love to hang their hat on across all sports, I thought that was really commendable, really impressive for him, and just sadly that they didn't get the job done against LSU on that, a Friday evening, and watch their season come to an end, because I still think with their pitching staff and their starting pitching, they were set up to make some noise if they could just get in, and obviously they didn't.
Yeah, the only thing to me, Scotty, that was the unforgivable weekend was Missouri. Because when you look at whenever they started to turn the season around against Tennessee, and you look at the entirety of the season and then how they played in Hoover against who they played against, all of that is completely fine. Every result from that point on, after that no-hit Tennessee, all the results were completely fine. It screamed postseason baseball team with a potential run in them, except for the killer, which was the Missouri series.
Well, and it's a killer 9th inning. There are points in time in this season where you can go back and look at a pitch. You can go back at a defensive play A&M didn't make. You can go back in an inning and see that they didn't make. We sat here and talked about that Friday before playing Missouri, and it was kind of like, don't think that Missouri, who played Georgia lights out the week before, can't win a game. And it put a huge amount of pressure on A&M to sweep them. But win the series, and it's different. Don't lose the game on Friday night, and how are you going to be? I wasn't here for that series, but you look at how they played with the hangover after that, it was like the bubble didn't get punctured and it went out slow. It's like it exploded and was over everybody. And for them to actually come back from that and play the baseball they did at a national host Georgia and then in the SEC tournament was commendable.
Let's just do this. Let's and I have my say on this, but if you're Mike Early, like, what do you think he can do? What do you think he can say in that meeting to potentially help his case?
Well, I mean, it's the elephant in the room, and the pundits we're excuse makers, but I do think that you can't act like injuries didn't happen to this team. You can't act like the team that you thought you were going to put on the field didn't play a single game together. Now, all of us knew that Sadeo coming back was a long shot at best. So I really haven't thought that Sadeo being missing was something that this team didn't have to, use as we can't count on that happening, that he would come back and be a weekend starter. But everything else, you never put the team on the field that you thought you would have. And that's very, very difficult. Because if I went to, and I pulled it up right here and brought it with me today, if I took 3 players out of the Aggie softball team this year with the names of Coco Woolley or Amari Harper or Kennedy Powell, that softball team doesn't look quite the same. And
Sure.
and softball doesn't have a closer, but pitching is even more magnified. So if you took out Emily Kennedy, A&M softball wouldn't be the same. So I'm going to say this is what happened injury-wise, and I think you would recognize that. Does that mean that I get a pass for things that were my responsibility, or would it be better to say these were my responsibility and this is where my shortcomings this year were, and they're not going to be in the future because of this? I think that is the tact that any coach would take that would go in coming off a disappointing season that was talking with his athletic director at the end of the year.
So of the injuries, obviously you missed Grohovic for most of the year and you missed Sorrell for most of the year. That's just 2 of the 9 spots in the order, right? If you go 1 through 9 and compare line by line from last year's lineup to this year's lineup and what you got from the 24 team and the 25 team, I think you regressed at more than just 2 spots.
Yes.
So injuries obviously played a part, but just lack of production from most of the guys in maroon and white played a bigger part, in my opinion.
Sure, but when I'm looking at this through the lens of Mike Early, and here's what I think. I think he goes in there and he says, this is what I screwed up. Full accountability, yes. This is what I screwed up. And I think knowing Mike, knowing the type of human being he is, there will be no excuses made. Like, I think he'll go in there and say, I screwed this up. And here's the main thing I learned. I learned that this building probably needs a big bad wolf in it, and I can be that guy. And me personally, if you're asking me, if Mike Early is given another year to be head coach, I 1,000% believe that day 1 of the fall, in August, when those kids come back to campus and they start fall workouts in August, he's a different animal.
I think they have better natural pass rushers. That doesn't mean they're going to have anyone drafted higher than Shamar Stewart. That doesn't mean that they're going to have a second rounder like Nick Scorton or Shamar Turner. But Cassius Howell, I think at times last year looked like their best pass rusher, oftentimes. Rylan Kennedy, you mentioned Garrett Nussmeier, he has sacked there. He has flashed it quite a bit. I think the guys you've added from Colorado, Florida, and Georgia, and people are sleeping.
Marco Jones.
And then a true freshman who I will have a chance to start.
Yep.
I don't want to put too much on him as a true freshman in the trenches in the SEC, but if someone can do it, he's got the, what's the word? The profile. I was thinking, that was a big, was that a big Jimbo or Sumlin word?
Sumlin was,
but he had
increased the profile.
Improved the profile. He's got that profile that fits to, hey, some point in his freshman season, you can see that guy starting. But don't overlook when you get a guy that was at Pitt and then he transferred to Colorado and he got hurt last year. He had a couple sacks. But in 3 years at Pitt, had 13 sacks. He's got 15 career sacks. And he's coming in here playing for a coach like Pat Narduzzi. He can get to the quarterback. And when you got the A&M lineman coming in here and I'm asking him, hey, and they all mention him. And then on top of that, the coaches have been mentioning him as well. I think one of the surprises of the spring. So the pass rush, I'm not anointing that, but you see where I'm.
Well, the
I'm
question was, how do they get to 10? Like, what happens if they get to 10 wins?
They get after the quarterback, and then all of a sudden that defense looks, because I think it's improved secondary, it's light years different. And then on offense, they have to line up behind that O-line that should be really good and run the football